Thanks for being such a great crowd. Again, I can tell you love the film as much as we did when we saw it. Thank you so much for being a great crowd here tonight. Help me welcome back Laura Brownson.
With absolute deep love, I would love to welcome Susie Wheldon up.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for your courage, your vulnerability, your openness in this film, and for you being here tonight. So thank you so much. Laura, let's start off with you. How did you decide to work on this project? You've done some narrative stuff in the past, done some other very intimate documentaries as well. Why the LIONHEART?
Well, you know, I think as the film shows, Dan's story was a filmmaker's dream come true on its own. But I'm maybe not the obvious choice to make a film about a race car driver. But what spoke to me was this idea that Dan's children were following in his footsteps. And as the mother of two children, two boys, two risk-taking boys, I thought, you know, how is that happening? And it's so interesting, and how much of a dilemma is it for this mother? And I was really struck by the fact that after talking to Susie, that this film really is so much more than a racing film. It's a film that I think universally can touch people, I hope. It's about love, loss, it's about familial legacy, it's about fathers and sons, mothers and sons, and so, you know, that's where, for me, as filmmaker, I was so deeply touched and, you know, thought, please let me do it.
So, Susie, you've probably been approached in the past, maybe about doing a project, maybe a similar project, something about Dan's life. What was it about this film that you knew this was the right path to go down?
I think it just really came down to timing, to be honest. Like you said, I had been approached before, and for whatever reason, it just didn't feel right. And, you know, I didn't want the story to end at Dan's accident. So I knew that there had to be a considerable amount of time to pass to tell a new story or to have a continuation of the story. And I didn't really know what that meant or where even the boys and I would be. I had no idea we would, you know, be on this journey. But I did know for certain that Dan's story did not end at the racetrack in Las Vegas.
And obviously the boys who were here earlier, you mentioned they had seen the film. What was some of their reactions? But as a family, maybe something right away, maybe later when it came back to you, what were their reactions?
Yeah, we watched it privately as just the three of us at home. I think it was important for them to see it, obviously, before it kind of went out to the world. And, you know, they were touched by a lot of things, and some things we kind of maybe pressed the fast forward button a little bit. You know, they're still obviously sensitive to some of the images and things like that. So, you know, as a mom, you want to protect your kids from that. And obviously they're having to work through their grief in their own time. And so we've never sat down and had a conversation about, you know, specifics about things, but, you know, they've just lived with it, and that's been their reality. So we're kind of on this journey together, and obviously whenever they have questions or things like that, they can come ask. But But yeah, they had, overall, they think it's, very cool that they're in a movie.
And that was beautiful at the end too, and great brevity to bring back those cutscenes and stuff too. But I think I also have 2 kids, and as I watched it, I was like, if I was in this situation, this is a great celebration and time capsule to come back to year after year, or whatever. This is something special that not a lot of people are going to have in their lives too. So it'll be fun over the years if they come back and have this special thing too.
Yeah, I think as they age, they'll probably they'll appreciate it a little bit more. They're moving into the ages where they're going to be more and more self-conscious about how I was so little then or whatever. But that gives me a lot of joy to think that perhaps I've given them or we've given them a time capsule.
Yeah.
And I will say, Dan Wheldon would
Are you kidding me? He would have loved this.
yeah.
And this was funny beforehand too. I experienced, even beginning of the film, the relationship between the boys, and the humor and the competitive spirit that was passed down as well too. Obviously we had the car outside, and they both got in the car. That was a special moment too. And you all were talking, you know a lot of great people and stuff too. I was there, talking to the boys. They didn't want to talk about Star Wars, which I always do with everybody. So we moved on to other stuff. And the funny thing was like, so you guys, how have you been doing with your racing and everything too? And just kind of like that scene of the bike, and kind of goes up the ledge too. Sebastian Toller was like, yeah, Oliver, you gotta win one of these coming up. You finally gotta win too. But can you give us an update on their racing career? No, Sebastian especially has done.
Yeah, so Sebastian actually this year has been his first time in cars, racing full-time cars now, and that's kind of our future. And he's doing the Skip Barber Racing Series in F4 cars, so he has had a great year so far. If I can just be the mom and brag for a second, we've had 10 races. He's podiumed every single race. He's run 4, and he's won the championship. And Oliver's continuing with karting this year. I think he'll be finished at the end of the year. He's got 2 more races left, but he has his first test in an F4 car about a week ago. So I think he'll be doing the same thing that Sebastian's doing this year in Skip Barber. So super proud of them, and just that they're able to do well and achieve their dreams and have a passion for it. So
I emailed you earlier in the week too, and the first words that come to mind were trust and just I think flexibility, and just you could see that through the film too. There's scenes in the film, obviously you didn't storyboard and say, hey, we're going back to Vegas or anything like that too. Talk about that process. Did you have this kind of the bookends and the flow of the film kind of set from the beginning, or how did that transform throughout the process?
It's one of those films that's really tricky just on a technical level to know how it's going to lay out, and because I'm telling 2 stories, and I want it not to feel gimmicky, I want it to feel organic, to flow back and forth between the 2 storylines. Because we didn't know that the boys would be returning to Vegas, that was something that happened. That was the documentary gods or whatever handing me a gift, but it was also, a very tricky moment for the family and all of those things. But once that fell into place, we sort of knew, okay, we have these 2 anchors. We have the boys signing with Andretti, which is a parallel to Dan's life, of course, and then the return to Vegas, which is another, and the rest of the sort of structure came together. A lot of trial and error.
Yeah. And Susie, how involved were you in picking a lot of the career highlights and everything too, and certain footage, and to telling your love story as well?
Yeah, no, I think that was, we had a lot of conversations, Laura and I did, and I really trusted kind of her vision for the movie. There might be specific things that would pop up that I would, mention, but she did her research well, and I think she told the story beautifully, and I just knew from the moment that we had our first conversation that it was in good hands, and I found the right person to tell the story, and so that was really special, and we've definitely developed a really special friendship, and we connected right away, and she had to tell the story, and there are some hard things in the story, and Dan wasn't perfect, much as he thought maybe sometimes that he was. So you have to show those real sides of him too, and sometimes maybe we have a kind of we romanticize people maybe after they're gone and just how amazing they were and all those things, which are true, but they also had, there's another side of the coin. And so she allowed me to be vulnerable and share with her and show those other sides of Dan, but still, telling the story beautifully.
In terms of the flow of getting footage, especially with you and the boys, what was that process like? Was it harder than you thought? Maybe a little bit easier? And what was that flow like? Were they kind of taken back by the camera?
Not necessarily. I think they've kind of been around in this environment, since forever. That's all they've really known. But there were times that it was a bit challenging, just from the standpoint of with them being on track, or if they had to be mic'd up, and of course, they were at the age where maybe a little self-conscious because all their friends, they have cameras following them around at the track, and they just kind of want to fit in and not. But I think that they've done really well to handle all those pressures, and maybe not even understanding. Now that we're kind of 2 years removed from it, they are older and they understand a little bit better. But I think at that point, just understanding that they do stand out a little bit from the other kids at the track, and I've tried to do my best to keep them grounded and keep them on their path, whatnot. But in terms of the movie, I think pretty quickly they warmed up to everybody, and we had a great crew. Laura and everybody that was part of the crew really helped to make the environment really special and just comfortable. Yeah.
And when they lost races, they did not like the fact that the camera was showing up. But when they won races, they were very happy to have the camera there. So, it's a little bit of that. But I want to go back to one of the things you said, just because I think it's really, every time I watch the movie, and I wasn't sitting next to Susie this time, but the last time we saw it in the theater, this is, in some ways, is really just a love story. And the fact that you referred to it as a love story is really important to me. And I think that, Dan's love affair with Susie, their relationship is a very big part of it, but also Dan's love of racing. And that, both of those things require risk in order to actually achieve something meaningful. And, Dan did take obvious risk with his profession, etc. But he lived a really amazing life for it, and he died doing what he loved doing. I think that their love affair was also just an important part of the film, and something that also shows sort of the necessity of risk. You can't love without knowing, without putting yourself out there, taking that risk. Hopefully people will take that away from the film as well.
Yeah, and watching the transformation of being a parent too, and how tender that was, how you portrayed that on the screen as well, but did not hurt his competitive edge whatsoever. That was really neat to see that as well too. Something that sticks with me from you were talking before, you said this was maybe one of the easiest movies to make in terms of working with interviews and subjects, because obviously people love Dan so much and your family. Can you talk about that? Were there highlights from that process?
just watching with this crowd. I know there are people here that knew Dan personally, and watching the film through all of your eyes tonight, I recognize that at least part of the film is very difficult probably for people to watch. So thank you for being here. But thank you to everybody in the motorsport community who has literally, if I had asked for an interview, they'd give me twice as long. If I needed a location, they would donate it. If I, whatever, I have been really welcomed, and those great storytellers sat and made the film so special, and they're funny and so wonderful. Without those guys who are just really great storytellers, the film wouldn't have the levity that I think it needs, because it goes to some dark places, but they make you laugh every time they're on screen. Thank you, Tony Kanaan, especially.
And then, so this was made with the help of Time Studios, then you eventually got picked up by HBO. Can you talk about working with both of those great parties?
Yeah, Time Studios, XTR, and Words and Pics were all involved in the beginning from a financial standpoint. We made it independently at a time when people were making films and selling them all over the place. And then, you know, of course, documentaries take way longer than, or my films tend to take a long time. So by the time we finished this film, nobody was buying anything, and I really thought, oh God, what's gonna happen? But we lucked out, and HBO loved the film. We sold it to HBO, and it will find a home and find a giant audience, and that's just been a dream come true also.
I think that was my first hurried email to your team. It's like, when is it playing on HBO? Because we got to play it here.
Yeah, not till next year, so we got time. Not till next year.
Yeah, so tell all your friends as well. The balance within this film is just phenomenal. Going back and forth with some of the tender moments and everything too. Was there something that maybe didn't quite make the cut, or there's something that I'm sure you said it took a long time, but I'm sure there's gobs of footage that didn't make it.
Yeah, I mean, the one that I always say, and I think this audience will probably appreciate the most, there was a whole story, I mean, there's tons of stuff that gets left out, and it's brutally painful, and I was telling 2 storylines, so of course I had, you know, I could have done 2 hours on Dan alone, but Dan's teeth. Let me tell you, there was a whole section where all those guys chimed in on Dan's new chompers. For anyone who doesn't know, when Dan left Andretti and moved to Ganassi, at some point he decided he would get veneers. And it was quite a big change. And he did it proudly, and he did it without, you know, any apologies. But God, were the guys funny talking about it, every single one of them. We may have to figure out a way to release that scene extra.
I think Dario said at one point that he was the only driver that's on the Borg Warner Trophy with 2 different sets of teeth.
All right, I don't think we can move forward after that. I think that's a perfect cap on the celebration tonight. Mic drop, exactly. No, but I think that's it. Any parting thoughts you'd like to share with anybody? We talked about a lot of the themes. Is there a final thought you'd like everyone to leave with?
I mean, and I'd love to give Susie the last word, but you know, this is a Dan's life ended in tragedy, but I hope that the film leaves us feeling inspired and hopeful and understanding that, you know, we move on from loss, and Dan's legacy is those 2 beautiful boys and this amazing woman, and it's been an honor to tell a story, so thank you. Thanks everybody for coming.
Yes. I think just, you know, wanting to say thank you to everybody in the room tonight, and you know, Indy is a special place for us, for me and my boys, and obviously it was a special place for Dan. He loved it here, and he loved racing at the Indianapolis 500. So, yeah, the story, the movie is about a lot of different things: love, loss, grief, but it's also a story of hope. And I hope that you guys can kind of see that in the movie, and something that I've, you know, shared with my boys. There are better days ahead, and there's always things to look forward to, no matter, you know, what the circumstances are in life. So I sit here with a lot of gratitude today for where I am with my kids, and again, just wanted to thank everybody for coming.
Woo!
If you love the film, it is up for Audience Choice Awards. So if you love the film, give it a 5. And we'll announce all the winners after the festival. But we could not have opened the 32nd Heartland International Film Festival in any better way. So let's hear it for the Lionheart, the Lord, Susie.